Would you like to start the ball rolling and sort of introduce yourself and tell us what we're going to see and hear?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Joolz, founder and deliverer of Community Climate Action, which is a workshop methodology for engaging with communities to get them to write their plan to mitigate and adapt to the changes that are here to the climate and ecological emergency. So as councils or councillors, we can only do so much. We can't write laws, often have limited budgets. And what we really recognise is we need civil society to take action. And what's civil society? Well, that's all of us. That's businesses, stakeholders, anchor institutions, schools, pubs, sports clubs, and various other things. And what we're going to do today is we're going to watch a 10-minute video presentation that I did for the SALC, which is Suffolk Association of Local Councils annual conference, and run through some of the methodology. And then we're going to have a little fun today, and we're going to see if between us we can write a top-level strategic community climate action plan
In 10 minutes.
In 30 in well in no the film is 10 minutes. We'll have 30 minutes to do it.
Okay.
We're cramming hours of activity into 30 minutes. It's going to be fast-paced and interactive and a bit of fun. And at the end of it, we'll see what we've come up with between us. And then I'll talk a little bit. We'll show another short video of about 3 minutes of what a workshop actually feels like and feedback on that. And then we'll talk about some of the digital tools available and some of the outcomes of this kind of planning exercise with the community. So without further ado, hopefully I'll be able to share my screen and play a video for you. So, and I'm hoping the sound comes out okay through the Zoom. We'll see. Let me know if you can hear it.
But a huge thanks to you, Joolz, and over to you to talk all about community and climate and action.
Thank you so much. And hello, everyone. I'm your improv for today. So I'm Joolz, parish councillor in Hopton cum Netchell. Netchell Heath's a country park operated by Suffolk Wildlife Trust, a small hamlet, about 5 homes. Hopton's slightly bigger, but we're one parish. And I'm also the founder and managing director of a community benefits society called iFarm. And we've got 10 acres of land, actually in Norfolk, just across the border on the river, because we're right on the river, the Little Ouse. And this is it from the air. We've got 4 acres of woody carr and fen. We're right in the middle of the Waveney and Little Ouse recovery project. That's Dave, who's our barman and our forest school teacher. And he's a volunteer at our pub as well. And he describes it as covering the pub in green science. So we're going to have a little look at that. And this is some of the rubbish that we've cleared off the land. So when we first got it, it was a bit of a tip. Loads of metal, tons of plastic, and we've really restored it. And now we've got some lovely rigs, and we're growing some nutrient-dense organic food there and doing community-supported agriculture and social prescribing for our residents. And we've also taken on our local pub. We haven't quite bought it yet, so we're just doing our share offer. And we've applied to the government's community ownership fund for 300,000 in match funding. And our intention is to retrofit the pub, because it's a leaky 200-year-old building, and also install renewable energy on it. Like I say, Dave says, cover it in green science. So we're going to be buying our pub, and we're going to be covering it in solar energy. And we hope to also have perhaps some solar on stilts in the car park to provide shade when it's hot and shelter from the rain when it's wet. That will also generate energy. We're hopefully going to have a ground source heat pump in the car park as well. And as a pub, our biggest single cost is electricity to run our cellar cooler, to keep our beer cold. And all of that heat at the moment just goes up into the atmosphere. So we want to see what we can do to fix that, because ultimately it's our residents and our community's money that's going up in smoke. So we've got some plans for the pub, and hopefully the pub will be a net exporter of energy for the village. And this is part of our management team at the pub. And we thought it was a bright idea to do some community climate action planning. So we actually managed to get £10,000 in funding from the National Lotteries Together for Our Planet Fund. And they said they really liked our bid And it was one of the strongest they'd received nationally because it was replicable, scalable, and leaves a legacy. And what we did first of all was map out our stakeholders. So who's around us, who needs to be involved. And we looked at, parish council, district council, county council, our political institutions, our church, our educational institutions. Bearing in mind, we're a pretty small rural community as well. But we've got a chip shop, we've got a hairdresser, we've got a school, village hall and a pub, this kind of thing. So we really looked at who's around us and who needs to be involved in what we're doing. And these are some of our stakeholders. Not exclusively, but some of the organisations that we have contacted and got involved with. And the quote here is from Professor Tim O'Riordan, who's the chair of the Norfolk Association of Local Councils. And had I have known I'd been here today, I would have changed it. But what Tim said is there is real scope for Norfolk ALC to learn the lessons being learned by community climate action in forms of management, of financing, of recruitment and widespread improvements of local livelihoods. And this should be connected to county-based devolution at an early stage. So what we're looking at is green infrastructure development and retrofitting and community energy generation by way of a community benefits society. So that productive activity in the surplus comes back to the benefit of the community. So if you're a parish council or parish councillor, or we all need sort of funds to put on events, to fix the village hall, whatever it might be. I'd rather see the profits from our energy generation come back for a precept to the parish council than go to shareholders overseas that are making record profits. Also, we aim to keep our residents warm and reduce their bills. What's not to like? So we held a series of participatory workshops because it's really important that the community is involved in creating the plan, because then it becomes their plan, and our communities have a sense of civic duty and a pride in place, and it's theirs to deliver, which means that as parish councillors, we don't need to necessarily take all of that work on board ourselves. We don't necessarily need to fund it. And we actually have actors and people who are community spirited stepping forward to do that activity. And one of the ways we've done this is by looking at shared values. So it doesn't matter which way you vote, it doesn't matter what your ideology is, because the climate crisis affects us all. So what are our shared values? And what came top where we are is sharing, belonging, wild space and community. So we kind of all agree what our values are. And then we did a session on what does community resilience and well-being feel like for you. Like for me, I like music, drinking, dancing, and cavorting, so it probably has a pub in it. A little bit of green space so I can go outside and walk and exercise, this kind of thing. And actually at the pub we have Meet-up Mondays for an older crew on a Monday morning. You might have seen the Rural Coffee Caravan stand out front where we have Meet-up Mondays. And I love that because I've now got about 20 surrogate grandparents, which is a marvellous thing. And through our planning, we then looked at themes, and the most common themes that came up were transport, energy, housing, food, and biodiversity. How do we build resilient communities in the face of flooding? How do we build resilient communities when there's extreme heat and weather? So the pub's a warm space, for instance, but the suggestion of our county council is now also a cool space, because we've got thousands of excess deaths in the UK due to heat. So as I say, it was a participatory exercise. And actually in that shot just on the left is Lorraine, chair of our parish council. So it was done with our community and parish councillors and district councillors, and we came up with a plan. And out of our themes, we then did projects. And one of the projects we've got here is retrofitting. And we used what's called a GROW methodology, which is goal, reality, options, and then who's going to do it. This particular one was retrofitting, and Suffolk County Council have just finished lending us some thermal imaging cameras. So we've just been around and done a bunch of thermal imaging, and some of you might be familiar with that. And then we had a parish councillor from Bardwell come over and pick up the cameras last night, and then he's going to go off and do the same. And we're really keen to make sure that retrofitting activity is again delivered by community benefit societies, and that economic activity in the accrues to the benefit of the community. So we're also talking to West Suffolk College and their construction team about how do we train up our young people to go and do this, because In our village, 550 homes, 84% of them are band D or below. If we do 3 a month, that will take us the next 13 years. To give an indication of the scale, I think in Suffolk, there's something like 200,000 to 300,000 homes that need retrofitting, and the government's estimated at a 65 billion market opportunity. So I'd like to see some of that done by CBSs. So we've gone through a planning process and had some discussions, and then we held a People's Assembly at the end of it to ratify it for objection, clarification, change. Are we on the right track? Have we done a good thing? You know, so it becomes the community's plan. And the outcome of that is I'm delighted to say that actually from 3 parishes, we've now gone to 6 to 9, and we formed a Suffolk Green cluster. And actually Andrew from Hinderclay Parish Council is part of our Suffolk Green cluster. And you can see him in the red shirt there. And we meet quarterly to discuss what we're doing within our working groups. As I say, we've got transport, housing, energy, food and biodiversity. And as of the 1st of January, we all have a biodiversity duty to comply with. And so it's really important we measure it and think about that when we're making decisions in relation to local nature-based recovery policies and strategy. That's our Green Cluster as it stands, and we meet quarterly. Our next meeting's coming up in December. If anyone would like to come along and just have a look at what we're doing, how we organise, pop in. We're very open, we're very welcoming to other groups. There are groups popping up all around Suffolk. In particular, we're now on a Community Energy South Pathways programme. And so they are helping us with site identification and feasibility studies for community renewable energy. And I think 6 groups were chosen throughout Suffolk. And those 6 community groups, parish councils, have now formed Suffolk's Community Energy Steering Group in consultation with the County Council. So as a group who are kind of walking the walk, and it's a steep learning curve, let me tell you, we're now set up to support other groups throughout Suffolk. So please do come and talk to me if you've got any interest in that. I've also got an exhibition stand just out there, Community Climate Action. And we've got groups starting up all around the country now, which is fantastic to see, where communities just go and write their plan and don't have to wait for permission. We can just go do. And we're also launching a new website called The Great Collaboration, which is for council and community climate action. And it will be a toolkit for collective action. And we've got a little bit of funding from the Society for Local Council Clerks. It's currently specific to Herefordshire, but we'll be launching it nationally shortly. So I'll have lots of great information about what people can do individually, but also what we can do collectively. And that's really important. We act together in this crisis because we're stronger together. I've been Joolz, so thank you very much. That's Community Climate Action and iFarm. I don't know if there's time for questions.
So there we go. That's an introduction or a presentation of some of the work we've done with Community Climate Action. Bear with me a moment while I just get stuff up on my screen. And so we're going to have a little play today. So you might have seen during that what we created through the process was a stakeholder map, our shared values, what does health and well-being feel like, and what themes people might like to work on, and possibly, if we've got a bit of time, some projects. This presentation was last year. I think it was around November. So I'm pleased to announce that we've now bought our pub. The ink's dried on the 29th of February. So as a community, we actually now own it as an asset of community value. And it forms the basis of our climate emergency centre, you know, a real hub for having these conversations, particularly over a pint. And also the open invitation that sort of given at the end of the presentation. We did have a number of different councillors from across Suffolk come and visit. And also the feedback forms from the event were great. It was like, it very much said this was one of the best presentation. And more of this, please. So I'm sort of delighted there's an appetite to build on. And that's then become planning to deliver sort of 3 community climate action planning taster sessions for parish and town councils throughout Suffolk. We're divided pretty much into East, Mid and Baber and West. And also is forming part of the Great Collaboration and our regional pilot, which some of you, I would imagine that most of you are familiar with the Great Collaboration. So we're going to dive in and we're going to spend maybe 30 minutes using it. I'll be your scribe, and I'm gonna use an online whiteboard called Miro. Haven't quite got the technology or time to do fancy things like breakout rooms where you can discuss it yourself, but this is very much a quick and dirty, version. So let's have a bit of fun. Let me see if I can share my screen again. So what you see in front of you is a whiteboard. It's a particular piece of software called Miro. And if I zoom in, oops, I need to right click, there we go. And if I zoom in, you can actually see the outcome of our first stakeholder mapping. What we did in the pub physically with post-it notes, and then we left it there over a weekend. People added to it, oh, you've forgotten this. And then we transcribed it digitally into columns and rows. Rows are where there was repetition from different people of the same thing. And what we can see there is we've got a nursery, Groundwork East, Suffolk University, local farmers, this kind of thing. And lots of repetition of Suffolk and Norfolk Wildlife Trust, as you would imagine, that kind of thing. That's then been digitized, and this is a service that we offer to communities to actually then draw out that stakeholder map. What does our community look like? And sitting behind that is then all of the contact details, the stakeholders, and what have you, so we can get in touch with them. These are the kind of things that come out of the workshops. I want to be involved, Luke. You might find volunteers at the local permaculture project, Dan. I bet the village hall would host your event, Katie. Green Homes Limited might help fund this. And as you saw in the video, we used a GROW methodology, which is goal, reality, options, and who. So what are we trying to achieve? What does success look like? What's the current situation? And what might be constraining us? What we can do now to make change happen, and who could help this happen, or who do we need involved? And in particular, this process builds capacity in the community. Everybody you saw in those working groups sitting around the table from 10 parishes are all volunteers, and we've got specific working groups delivering projects. We looked at what community resilience and well-being feels like. We came up with our themes, and then below the themes or within the themes were specific projects. And a project, when a theme might be food, but a project is an allotment, so when it's done. And you can see some of the process here with post-it notes, and we've all been through post-it note exercises, but then these are formed into specific projects with deliverables. And what's most importantly at the end of this process is actually going in and enacting the plan. So we're going to have a little play, and we've got about 5 minutes, I think, for each section. So in terms of stakeholders, I'll just invite everybody in the group, just kind of put your hand up or shout out stakeholders, and we'll maybe try and get 5 to 10. And I'll pop them on here in a sticky note. So anyone can go first. Who's a stakeholder in your community that you think
Parish Council.
There we go. That's a great one, because we're mostly parish councillors, and absolutely. So the first thing that we did was go to our parish council, and actually that was before I was a parish councillor, and we said, we want to write a plan, would you support us? And thankfully they said yes. That's great. So parish councillors. Next one.
Farming communities.
Oh, there's a couple there. Who wants to go first?
Nick. I just said farming community. We're in a rural place.
Yeah, farming community and farmers. Farmers are VIPs. They often get it in the neck, but you know what? We need our farmers 3 times a day, and they can have a huge impact on the environment.
Local businesses.
Farming community. Businesses.
Local transport.
Sorry, I was going to say these are local businesses.
Yeah,
not the big corporates that just have a chain.
absolutely. Let's add that. Local businesses, yeah.
I say
Church.
local transport.
Transport. Yeah, definitely.
Community groups.
So I heard schools there, I think. Was there another one?
Community groups, local community groups, like biodiversity community groups or local. And I suppose that would embrace village halls as well.
Okay, so we've got schools. So we've got local green groups.
Excuse me.
Residents.
Residents, yeah, very much.
Village halls, community centres.
Yeah, very much.
Church.
Yeah, church and faith groups. Yeah, so we've got. Oops, so let's do church and faith groups.
Look, I'll say local politicians. That can be district stroke county councillors and a local MP maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've also got village halls. Village halls are great. Our village hall is getting about 300 grand's worth of sections 106 money from a local development. So we're really considering what we do with that in terms of retrofitting and renewable energy. And it's great because it's both a place to gather and also a really good exemplar. You know, it's the heart of the community. So
You put in village schools, you mean village halls, don't you?
I'm sorry, I thought I was talking about village halls. Yes.
Yeah, you put in village schools.
Oh, yes, I have.
Sorry.
Thank you. No, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I'm typing quickly. And then we also had another one, which was politicians. Oh, sorry. So that's local, that's sort of parish district. So we've got parish councils. So I'm just going to put, I'll put local authorities, LAs. Also very important, we work really closely with our district, our county council, and our neighbouring districts, and often counties have strategic climate change partnership, which will coordinate from a county level the activity of district or constituent counties or councils. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Jules, could you add to that the AONB? So Cotswold National Landscape, for example, for us brings together 6 counties, and it's got the overarching approach. So national landscapes they're called now.
Okay, yeah, so we'll call that AONB and probably catchments as well.
Yep, absolutely, for blue spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. Things like the Avon River catchment, and there's the national Downs, I think, in Hampshire, something like that. But yes, absolutely.
And there's the Rivers Trusts all over the place as a charity. So
okay, we're going to add Rivers Trust and other environmental NGOs. So Rivers Trust and environmental NGOs. Yeah. Okay.
WI.
The WI is a great one. I did a workshop with and had a member of the WI in the group I was facilitating. And also actually Jennifer, who was in one of the pictures you saw in the in our community climate action planning, she's 87 and she's lived in the village for 60 years and said she hasn't been so excited about participating in something since the WI. So yeah, absolutely. Also in that same
housing
group,
associations.
yeah, housing association, yeah, very much. Also in that same group, when talking about local authorities, I'm a member of the Labour Party for my sins, but we had a Green Party district councillor and we had a Conservative county councillor. It was a non-partisan issue, so we're actually collaborating as a team. And then when we had to present back to the group, I said, "What's our team name?" And the Conservative county councillor suggested we're red, green, and blue. So we were all working in cohort, and that comes to our shared values. Sorry, I've forgotten what I was going to write on this post.
Housing associations.
HAs, yeah, absolutely. So that's probably enough for stakeholders.
Could I just offer one, Jules,
Sure.
if you don't mind? You don't have well, broadly the media. You don't have the press, television, radio, all of whom are very important influence makers, I'd have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Press.
And the one that we always forget is young people, be they school leavers or students.
Yeah, very much. There's a interesting question. How do we get young people involved, and how do we get young people particularly to care about politics and know it's a participatory sport?
Because it's their future.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Jules, I've got in our parish of Bourton on the Water, we have a youth MP, so member of the youth parliament, and everywhere has got a coverage of member of youth parliament that is not necessarily the same constituency as our MPs, but it's worth everybody finding out who their local member of youth parliament is. And they do go down to Westminster and give speeches, and you know it's a fully structured official event structure.
That's fantastic. And actually, I think Suffolk has a similar youth parliament, which is great.
The youth parliament is national, and each constituency, it's just like our government, it's full of elections. It's all done to shadow, MPs.
Fantastic. Yeah, it is great. And what I discovered was over a pint, talking about the prospects for regenerative settlement, which would be a net zero carbon negative development of social housing in perpetuity with community renewable energy and green space. And with our house band at the pub, they were sort of all in their young 20s. They're called Gorilla Glue. And I was talking to them about it, and they said, "What, you mean we might be able to rent a house, a really affordable house?" And I said, "Yeah." And they were like, "Oh wow!" And I was like, "You should come to meetings." And all of a sudden, it's very relevant to them because they're, many of the young people can't afford homes around here, still living with parents, that kind of thing. So now we're going to quickly move on to values. What values do we share? So we're going to take any isms out of it, and what values? What are
The future, having a future.
Having a future, great.
Respect.
Oh, whoops, I managed to delete the sticky note. Bear with me a moment. So future, having a future.
Collaboration.
Respect. Collaboration.
Honesty.
Yeah.
Integrity.
Collaboration. Honesty.
Accountability.
Yeah.
You can put them all together as the Nolan principles, I suppose.
Sorry, that was Nolan principles, was it?
Yeah, NOLAN.
Interesting. Okay, so Nolan principles.
As a councillor, you should be aware of them.
Thank you. Yeah, I've only just done my SLCC training and relatively novice councillor. But Nolan principles, honesty.
Otherwise known as civility and respect, but Nolan principles is you've got an N in principles missing. You got it.
Honesty, integrity, and respect.
Optimism and hope.
Hope, that's a really good one. And actually, when we go through this process, particularly if we're talking about the science, there can be a lot of, it can be pretty terrifying. So we involve Norfolk and Waveney Mind with active hope workshops. The fact that we do have agency, we know that change is here, we need to adapt. So we absolutely need hope.
Team spirit.
So team spirit. Fantastic. And in that vein, don't need to answer now, but what is our team name? We'll take suggestions at the end for the tip for our team name. And I think maybe one more on values.
Inclusivity.
Yeah, also really important that everybody, we take everyone with us on the journey. And that's why in particular it's completely open invitation, often multiple locations, dates, everybody's invited. And at the end of that, then there's a people's assembly to ratify what's occurred, so that nobody can object after the fact. And also, so inclusivity. And
Can
also,
we include participation there, so that inclusivity is everybody equally involved, but participation means no sitting on the fence, you know, get stuck in.
Yeah, get active on it.
absolutely, this is a participatory activity. So they're participatory workshops. So participatory, yeah, great. And again, under values, we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 9. I'll take one more. Fun, dancing, music. One more. Empathy. Great. Let's go.
Yeah. Can we say empathy and kindness? Because I really liked that from your video.
Yes, absolutely. Empathy and kindness. So no matter what our political persuasion, no matter how we vote, no matter, you know, we've now agreed as a team or as a group or as a community that what we value is our future. We value respect, collaboration, honesty, and in particular include the Nolan principles of honesty, integrity, and respect. We want to work with inclusivity, hope, and with a team spirit. It's a participatory process with empathy and kindness. So now we've all agreed that. So we've got an idea of the stakeholders, we've got an idea of our values as a community. And the next one we're going to do is health and well-being. So again, really quickly, because this is super urgent, because the climate crisis is here. We've got very little time to fix this. So we've got 5 minutes to fix the world. So what does health and well-being feel like for you? What do you need?
A healthy planet.
What does it feel like when we've got it, or what do we need to have it?
A bit of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
What-
So
what
I
do you-
would say
what
the
do you
word that comes to mind for me is thriving.
Thriving, and that could apply to a number of things
Yeah.
in terms of our ecology, you know, biodiversity, and just our lives and business and what have you. So that's really nice. Thriving. So
For
we
me,
want
it's access
thriving.
to nature, my garden and green spaces.
Sense of
Access
community.
to green spaces.
Sense of achievement.
Sense of community and a separate one as achievement. So
That sense of community, it's maybe connection as well. So maybe that's what you mean by sense of community, in which case I wholeheartedly agree. It's about feeling connected within the community, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose it's like not being isolated, not feeling isolated.
Yes, 100%.
okay, so
And feeling a sense of purpose and value, you know, yeah, a sense of
yeah, purpose is incredibly important. As a community benefit society, our primary purpose is reducing social isolation, health and well-being. Our second purpose is education, protection and conservation of the environment. And in terms of reducing social isolation, I often say that loneliness isn't just a lack of people, it's a lack of purpose. So yeah, purpose is great. So this is health and well-being. Okay, so we've got 5 there. I'm conscious of time.
I would say access to food, you know, clean food, water. It's all the basic it's like that hierarchy of need, isn't it? It's all the basics.
So healthy
environment.
What
which
about access
includes
to knowledge or education, like community talks and things?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. So I'll put learning, I think. Learning and education. Yeah, super important. It's a lifelong journey of learning for me anyway, and for us, I think. So learning and education. Love learning new things, particularly new words.
And creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So creativity.
We often talk about a just transition, quite how you'd express that under health and well-being. But that
I
has to
think
be
maybe equity.
a thriving community.
Yeah, equity.
Yeah.
Independence.
Independence and a sense of having some control in your life.
Let's call it agency, shall we?
What are you calling it?
Just about
Agency,
to say
because
agency, yeah.
Did you say agency?
agency. So
Yeah,
that
okay.
yes. So in terms of having control in our respective lives, the climate crisis is often up here, and it's just so big and immutable. And what can we possibly do? It robs us of our agency, and makes us feel that we're inconsequential and we can't take action. So yeah, agency is really important, and independent action. So we can act collectively and independently. So yeah, okay. So we've now got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think we've got 10. That's great under health and wellbeing. So the next one. Sorry. So now we're going to do some themes. So what themes do you think we should tackle in our community? And like I say previously, what we've looked at, and there might be some parity, we might just simply agree. So this is what was drawn out at the Centre for Alternative Technology, where we did a weekend workshop, and really ran through this for a very specific geographically based area called Bolsall Heath. Bolsall Heath have a retrofit reimagined festival that they do, and Bolsall Heath are an amazing group. They've already retrofitted 700 homes in their own community. So in terms of themes, oops, where are we?
From a carbon point of view, I tend to go for transport, energy and food.
Yeah, so
simply because they are the ones that, if we get right, can reduce our carbon footprints the most. And also they are important for us anyway, particularly in rural settings.
yeah, I definitely get that. Our nearest bus stop is 2 miles away.
Well, I've got 4 bus stops within 100 meters, but no buses ever to stop there. But yeah, it could come under some other heading, which is localization.
So I think you mentioned 3: transport, energy and food.
Could I have blue and green spaces?
Oh, explain more? Is that water and biodiversity?
Yeah, water and green space. So somewhere to exercise as per sort of like COVID lockdown, where we needed that connection to be able to go and walk, and also whether it's litter picking or it's whatever it is, it's about having green space action. And then the blue space action is things like water quality, and sewage, and having somewhere to have recreation in water. So it's the responsibility and the enjoyment of, and planning, and it covers so much stuff. But I'm thinking of it as the geographical space as much as I guess it could be biodiversity.
It's green and blue infrastructure, isn't it? Really?
It's everything really, because you're looking for themes. You can see how all of this can fit underneath it, and that's the best way I can think of putting an overarching term to it.
Cool. Okay. Let's take one more.
Adaptation,
resilience,
like flood resilience and things.
So yeah, let's just put resilience in there. That's a new one actually. So resilience might include housing in terms of rent. It might include flood mitigation,
and it can involve mental health too.
I would suggest, yeah, I would suggest also emergency planning.
Yeah, and your warm and
which
cool
we all
hubs.
again have a duty to provide, and
mental health, so that the climate anxiety, that we were aware that we don't worry people, but we do it in a measured way and we support them.
How about
Waste and recycling.
Yeah. So I think, yeah, we could just do that as a heading of waste. Yeah.
opportunities for young people?
So let's do waste. There we go. Okay, cool. Well, that's a number of themes. And what we're now going to do is think of quickly projects under each of those. So maybe if we want, maybe if we want to start with transport, you could just shout out a couple of transport items.
Car share.
Community bus.
Active
Okay, so
travel.
car share,
Charging
this is-
points.
transport, car share. Oh, I've done that in the wrong colour, but don't worry.
Cycling.
Okay, they come in under active travel. So walking, cycling, scootering.
So active travel. I tell you what, I'll only take two under each theme.
Energy reduction.
So energy we'll do next. So we've got two on transport. So next one is energy. So what would we do for energy?
Renewable energy.
Yeah. So yeah.
Warm homes, I suppose, insulation of homes.
It's more energy efficiency, isn't it, really?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's powering up, powering down. You know, the cheapest energy is zero.
For me.
So energy, and I think we just got energy efficiency.
I do apologise if you heard any of that. It's just my guard dog's been out doing the gardening for me.
No problem.
Unhelpfully.
Yeah. So we've got under transport, we've got car sharing. Oh, spell efficiency wrong. So under transport, we've got car share and active travel, which is walking and cycling. That incorporates a bit of planning as well to actually get to the point where we can have these lovely neighborhoods we can walk around. Under energy, we've got community renewables, fantastic. And we've got energy efficiency. So
biodiversity projects.
Yep, so that would come, and that would be under, so we're now going to do biodiversity. So what could we do for in terms of biodiversity? We could
Nature recovery plan.
nature recovery plan. We could audit
Absolutely.
where we are.
That's just the word I was going to say.
Great. I've got lots of cool sensor tech. Happy to share at a later date that helps measure the biodiversity. It includes audio sensors. You can listen to worms under the ground and this kind of thing. So biodiversity, nature recovery plan and audit. Some councils have actually bought land for community land trusts for rewilding or for food or etc. So a project could be a community land trust.
It could be doing an audit so that you designate areas as green, green spaces, and that way protect them from being lost to the sort of lungs of the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's just call that protection. Again,
could we put it under space for nature?
And we're right at the moment, we're right in the middle of No May. Lots of us will be looking after verges and green space. I have heard it said that we shouldn't just not mow in May, we should just not mow. Because obviously we create this lovely environment for insects and various bits in our ecology, and then of course we mow it, and that food source and everything suddenly disappears. So how do we create that space? So we've now got a couple of projects: protection of space for nature, biodiversity, nature recovery plan, audit, and possibly a community land trust. What about food?
I'd say community gardens. Community growing spaces.
allotments.
rather than allotments, as it were.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, that would probably be community supported agriculture.
That obviously
we-
overlaps with well-being and thriving communities.
Yeah, it
Could
does
be
indeed.
something more informal, like Incredible Edible.
Yeah, absolutely. Very familiar with Incredible Edible. They're
I put
fantastic.
education under food, because if you're doing all of this with a climate hat on, the waste in food that comes from people not really knowing how to cook is phenomenal. So education should probably be in there.
And composting.
Education. Waste.
Oh, that'll be
yeah,
under
that's-
waste maybe, but yeah, the good to go and all those other affordable.
Yeah.
You know, you might not be able to eat good food at full price, but there are plenty of ways, if you know about them, to access good food for lower prices.
So I think initially you mentioned composting. So I will put
Yeah,
that.
although I didn't know whether that would go under waste, which is another of the titles.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
We've set up a community shop, which acts as a social hub as well.
Okay.
Could I just say that overwhelmingly, what we need is a resilient local food chain.
Very much.
Action and food miles. I mean, that should be the overarching theme to my mind.
Yeah, these are projects, so they're specifically things that you can deliver and that you want to work on.
It's the context within which the projects are taking place, I suppose, that's I find critical in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much. So to give you some good example, I mean that what you've just mentioned, the shortening the supply chain, absolutely. Farmers are the squeezed middle between big ag and the supermarkets, and their lives are really difficult. And actually, their number one suicide risk. And so we're part of a mental health program called Yana, which You Are Not Alone. So frontline mental health champions to help triage and signpost and direct to services. We don't deliver those ourselves, but it's a tough life being a farmer. You know, and it's not particularly profitable at the moment. So shortening those supply chains and really understanding where our food comes from is super important. It's really important now before we're hungry and thirsty. You know, when the climate crisis bites, our harvests are failing before our eyes. This year, the potato crop in Ireland's failed. There's crops rotting in the fields. Our farmers are failing to plant because it's so wet. And actually, and I mean, I'm in Suffolk, which is really rural, and 80% of what we grow is exported, and it's not really food. It's cereal crop for animal feed or sugar beet. So, you know, when it really came down to it, tomorrow, if we had to, could we eat what was grown in the fields around us? The answer is no.
Joolz, you're absolutely right.
Sure.
And therefore, if it was possible to define a project which actually brought the farmers closer to their community in all respects, both in terms of what they're producing and in the way they're supported within a thriving community. And it seems to me you may well have something going on over there, which we
Yeah,
could
we do.
implement
We've formed a farming cluster of 17 farmers, covering about 5,000 hectares, and then we're also in discussions with our county farms estate, and they have about a further 4,000 hectares. So we are, particularly both with our very limited market gardening, we've got a broad network of community supported agricultural projects throughout East Anglia. That's lovely to see at various scales. But we're also really talking to our farming community about farm to fork. You know, how do we supply direct? How do we create farmers markets? How do we create a market for that and a respective value chain to reduce the food miles, but also improve soil health, which is particularly important, and make sure we have nutrient dense organic food, essentially.
It's also traceability, isn't it, Joolz?
Yeah.
I know when I had my cancer treatment, I had to be especially sure that whatever I ate didn't have additional, for example, any pharmaceuticals that might have gone into the food chain through the animals. I needed to know where my food had come from. And so in my case, shopping at the co-op, I knew that we only had food that was traceable within the UK, and it wasn't sourced elsewhere where we had less knowledge about the traceability. So things like that are quite important too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've got because we're limited for time. Probably won't go into too much detail about waste, but I'm just going to add one for resilience.
While you're doing that, can I put in one for waste, which is that our parish council have voted to have 0 waste bins by 2030, so that those that create the waste are the ones that have to think about what's going to happen to that waste. Otherwise, all their packaging is going to be littering and ruining the village, which is a highly touristed area. They need to think about where they're going to, you know, otherwise it's their waste that's going to be advertised all around for people to see.
Good luck with that one, Amanda.
Yeah, no, we're going to need good luck.
So just under resilience, I'm just very quickly going to add emergency plan. And then I'm going to pause there and quickly show you another video of this in actually happening, and what the workshops feel like. And then we'll dive through the top level strategic plan that we've created as your plan, our community's plan. And at the end of this video, I hope we have some nice suggestions for team names. So hopefully you can hear that okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. I'm really excited to be on this journey with you. So I really appreciate it. This is the third of 3 community climate action planning workshops. And it's not the end of activity, it's the start of activity. The outcome of what we're doing today will be top-level strategic plan that we then present to our respective parish councils who have all formally voted to support this activity. For Low Norton, obviously where we are, the villages of Felneatham and the parish of Hopton come Netshall as well. That's where we are today. The outcome of the previous 2 workshops is that we've got 5 different themes that we're going to be looking at. And vote with your feet, dive in, dive out of the area that interests you, or join the table in if that area really interests you. You can stick with that table, or you can move around a little bit. The table at the end is transport. And in a rural area, that's one of the toughest nuts to crack. And I think that's why nobody's joined the transport table.
And what we're trying to do now is I want each of you to think of actionable projects. If in your area you think, yeah, we really need to have a community allotment, that's an actionable project. It's something that could be done. You'd know if it was done or it wasn't. It's not like a heading of water. So what we're looking for now is 3 project ideas each. And I want each one to be written on a post-it note. And we're going to rotate and do a whole bit of project work.
I just think the whole just coming together with people in the local community and kind of speaking about our different ideas and thoughts about what we feel is important to the challenges that we're facing, the climate change, and yeah, it's just been really positive.
I think we are going we are just rebuilding the community towards have some different parameter to see our humanity, how we want to live in future and how we face the challenge as a humanity. So I think that's my connection goal, and I feel like small action like this connecting in rural area, I feel this is very important to have larger impact as a whole world.
So there we go. I hope you enjoyed that. Actually, just before I'll go back and share my screen once more. We can just quickly run through what we've done. Do feel free to dive off the call if but very quickly. Let's have a look. So we're stakeholders. We've got housing associations, rivers trusts, NGOs, local press, Women's Institute, local authorities, village halls, areas of outstanding natural beauty and catchment, church and faith groups, transport, schools, businesses, green groups, parish councillors, residents, and our farming community. Under our values, we've all agreed we want a future, you know, we want to leave a legacy for our children and further generations. We'll respect, collaboration, honesty, team spirit, hope, inclusivity, empathy, kindness, and participation. Under health and well-being, we want a purpose, we want to thrive, we want access to nature and green spaces, we want community and connection, we want learning and education, creativity, agency, equity and a just transition. And we want a healthy environment in terms of air, food and water. And themes, as a group, we're going to work on transport, energy, food, biodiversity and resilience and waste. And some of the projects we've looked at include setting up a car share and a carpooling scheme, active travel, community renewable energy, energy efficiency, looking at some community supported agriculture and perhaps a local farm shop. Within that, composting, cooking, education, and considering waste. And we're going to engage with our farming community. We're going to look at a nature, biodiversity and nature recovery plan. We're going to measure it and perhaps even consider buying a piece of land under a community land trust. Protect space for nature. And in terms of resilience, we're going to build that into our emergency plan in terms of what do we do if it floods? What do we do if there are no food deliveries for 2 weeks at the supermarket? That kind of thing. So well done. That's a very quick 30-minute introductory session for writing your community climate action plan and effectively have a top-level strategic plan. And if you can imagine this was done in your community, it would be written by your community for your community and then acted on by your community. And as I say, what tends to happen through the process is volunteer capacity is built and leaders step forward. Some will say, oh, I'm an architect, or, you know, I do this, or I'm particularly interested in that, or there's, you know, somebody's like, well, I already run the river group, this kind of thing. So it also builds capacity and leadership in your areas. This is an example community climate action proposal that we've recently written for Petersfield Town Council, and so we do a bit of a deep dive and look at you know who's around, and it's the New Forest National Park, and we've identified who the local resilience forum is. In Worthing in Sussex, there's a community group, and the local resilience forum are actually funding a community climate action workshop specifically on food in relation to resilience, because the local resilience forum is starting to take this kind of thing seriously in terms of emergency planning. So we look at who the local resilience forum is. In Hampshire, it's the Southeast Farming Wildlife Advisory Group, which is a membership organisation for farmers. The Hampshire and Isle of Wight Wildlife Trust. So it gives you an example, and they're also doing community energy. And then this is the part of the plan that was actually written on the day at the Centre for Alternative Technology for Balsall Heath, and really got into some quite granular detail, actually looking at links about where they find data on EPCs, where we find data on things like fuel poverty, and then actually started mapping that out. You know, so we start to become citizen planners and actually have agency to go and fix this kind of things ourselves. As community climate action, we do digital training, and there's a whole bunch of cool tools, many of which will shortly be coming out for use via the Great Collaboration, which is a toolkit for council and community climate action. And there we go. Well done. Well done. We've written a plan. So just going to close off really by two things. How did that feel? And what's our team name?
That felt good. And I would say we're the great collaborators.
Cool.
You could borrow what we have in the forest, which is the Climate Action Partnership. I don't know how many years it's taken us to arrive at that name. Chris would nod, he knows. Anyway, that's from the forest.
I would also say Climate Communities United.
Hope Sparks Action Coalition.
Cool. Well, we've got this is for us, this group as a team. So we could be the Great Collaborators, Climate Action Partnership, Climate Communities United, and Hope Sparks Action, or any combination
Jules,
of.
I put some in the chat as well. So
Oh,
I put
cool.
open to the future, together for the future, thriving futures, and community future.
Fantastic.
It's just a few thoughts.
Yeah.
I'd like to throw in Planet B.
BEE, Graham.
No, as opposed to Planet A, there is no.
Yeah, no, I got
there is
that. I
no
was
B.
just adding a wink to your suggestion.
Fantastic. Well, that's some really lovely suggestions for a team name. And anyone else want to contribute? How did that feel as a process?
Exhilarating.
Yeah, it was engaging.
Cool.
I would imagine that you get similar results from this process across communities, because there are some common themes and common aspirations. So, but it's good that they actually engage physically, because there's that coming together, that social capital, which will support them in the future. So yeah, I think it's a good process. And how much funding is left in the housing, what's it called, the community ownership fund?
I think the community ownership fund is probably coming to the end of its life. However, we'll likely have a new government. Certainly Labour have said to the Plunkett Foundation they actually want to extend and expand the community ownership fund and build on its success to protect assets of community value. And they're, in terms of the consultation, they were perhaps looking at a community right to buy. What it currently is a community right to bid. So you're allowed to bid, but it doesn't necessarily mean you'll get it. So they might be extending that. So, you know, do start thinking about your assets of community value and getting them protected and what have you. But that's great. So I've heard it creates some social capital. It's engaging, it's exhilarating, and felt great. That's not a bad thing to end
I
on.
had a fantastically efficient time. To do all of that in 1 hour is brilliant. Thank you.
Fantastically efficient. I thought so. Yeah, we sped through it, and there's some really brilliant stuff that we captured. And as I say, normally this is a much longer process. We would then go on to actually dig down into the detail. And what we've gone on to do is actually form working groups and committees. We are currently applying for funding from the government's CEF, the Community Energy Fund, for feasibility and planning for a couple of very large-scale community renewable energy projects. One which is wind turbine, one which is a field of agrivoltaics, which is solar on stilts. So you actually get productive food and biodiversity and carbon sequestration and energy. So that's quite exciting. We're looking at, we've invariably got the 10 acres of land in the pub. We're looking at a regenerative settlement, and my next meeting this afternoon is with the Director of Growth and Strategy at the District Council, having met with the leader and the Cabinet member for housing. So we're actually looking at building a regenerative settlement. In terms of food, we've formed a consortium of farmers locally, and several of them are actually members of our green cluster, newly formed. So yeah, and you know we're actively looking really at going and retrofitting our homes. So we've got 484 that need retrofitting. So how do we go and do that? So we're starting those conversations, you know. Great. Amanda, you've got your hand up.
Thank you, Jules. I wondered if you had been in touch with Unity, which is Octopus Energy and Mid-Counties Co-op joint venture, where we've got a fund specially to help with community energy. It's like a loan scheme because all the costs come up front, and when it starts to pay back is down the pipeline of the energy. Yeah, so it's to help as almost like a bridging loan. And it very much wants to help and support organisations like your own to, you know, give it a helping hand.
Absolutely. That's lovely to know. I have been in touch with Octopus, talked to the low carbon homes director, Emma Fletcher. She did the Swaffham Prior project for district heating to completely decarbonise the village, which is, or which is fantastic. And it's really good to hear that there's, you know, that a cooperative enterprise is collaborating with a commercial enterprise. In terms of funding, in terms of the capital cost of stuff, I'm actually delivering a session, Funding Our Futures, on May the 22nd at the LCC Net Zero Summit. So do come along and we can talk about all sorts of ways to actually access large amounts of patient capital for this green transition, to buy land, to build houses, to retrofit, and to anything, and for community renewable energy. So anything that has a productive output and creates revenue is eminently.
Can you send us a link to that, please, Joolz?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've got it just here, so bear with me a moment.
Whilst he's doing that, let me just say thank you very much to Joolz for a really enlivening and reassuring and totally exhausting hour. And just to advise everybody that the presentation that he's made, the video of this session, the comments from the chat link, and all that will be made available to everybody on the wiki just as soon as I can get around to it. And as soon as YouTube has got around to processing the video, which takes a little bit longer than it used to nowadays. So Joolz, thank you very much. And you've put your comments in the chat for everybody. Any last second contributions, or shall we say thank you very much and let everyone go off to lunch? So
I put my contact details in the chat should anyone want to talk further either about the Great Collaboration or Community Climate Action. And there's also a link to the Net Zero Summit for the SLCC.
Brilliant, Joolz. And just so that you all know, the next topic next week is a discussion about food security banks from David Dixon in Dorset, which I think could be very interesting. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for your time. I hope it's been useful. We'll give you access to everything and look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Great session. Thanks, Joolz. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.